Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. You know this update that came out the other day where they were talking about this V12.6? It happened, so it's here. It's live, and I was hovering over that part for one important thing. Most of this announcement is all heroes that are coming, which is great, exciting, awesome stuff. But the main thing that I'm focusing on today, or in this video, is the fire rate changes, which I'm going to set your expectations by saying I was a lot more excited about this than I am now, because this was kind of a cool change. You're changing literally every bow. Okay, let's see. But then I tested it. You'll see my findings, and I'm not certain that that was an insane change, but there are some good changes and there are some unnecessary ones coming with this. So without wasting any more time, what exactly happened? So all of the bows now have a fire rate perk, which means if you go to any of the bows, they were smart about it. They kind of changed all the different locations of all these perks, but some of them are down here, and then I think the first one I looked at was the powder keg is up here. So they kind of allowed it so that you can still do a crit and crit damage build, and you can still do double damage, and depending on the bow, you can make little tweaks, but you're going to have to look at every single individual bow so you can make the decision for yourself as to whether or not that'll be worth it. But what exactly changed? I'm going to start with the powder keg because that's the first one I recorded. This is a weapon I really liked. This is the kind of schematic where changing that from what I had before to what I'm showing now was kind of like a kind of moment, because I really liked this weapon and I liked how it was perked, and that was the first bow that I found out kind of what the fire rate perk does, and that is it allows you to charge to your max capacity faster. That's the main change that they made, is that not only do these now have a fire rate perk, but fire rate in Fortnite Save the World has been changed now so that charge weapons now get impacted sooner, and that's exactly what happens with all of the bows. Now, I was expecting quite an undertaking as I was going to test every single bow in the game, but I found out very quickly with the Xenon Bow corroborating this, the fire rate really does just impact the max charge. So if nothing special happens at that charge, I don't need to test this for every bow. You can just sort of inference that for every single bow, you will be able to shoot as accurately and as far as possible sooner if you use fire rate. And the Xenon is a great example of a weapon that I think is nice. It's impacted positively by this, but I don't think it was necessary, and I'm not certain if I'll be keeping my schematic this way. I couldn't really tell, because at first glance you can see, wow, that's nice and quick. That snaps just like straight to a straight line. This is nice. And then I switch to the secondary one and it's a little slower, you can tell. But once I get into the combat, half the time I didn't even know which bow I was using. Going here on out throughout the entire video for all of the weapons that I'll be showcasing, the fire rate version is in my left slot and my normal, usually crit build, is on the right slot. So now you can sort of understand which one I'm using without me having to label it. And that's basically it. So I was, it was a Xenon Bow doing what a Xenon Bow does, and it felt nicer with fire rate, but not really different with my other right-handed side, normal schematic. And that's exciting for me as a content creator, because it means I would have to update 11 of my bow videos with all these different fire rate weapon changes if this was a big change. But I feel like a lot of people should be able to figure out whether or not that will suit their needs. And another one I wanted to test, simply because I knew it would be a very big question, was did the vacuum tube bow get any different? Now this one I roll triple damage, so triple damage versus fire rate double damage. In terms of DPS, I think fire rate is actually the better way to go here in terms of how it levels out in the end. That's actually usually what I recommend for a lot of weapons if you don't want to go crit build, is fire rate double damage. But in practice, I found two things. It was the same deal where it felt really good with fire rate. It was like, wow, that's nice and snappy, and kind of slow with the other version. But the other version, I don't know. Once I got into the thick of it and I was taking out an encampment full of zombies, I really wasn't seriously feeling any major difference. So I do like fire rate. I have nothing bad to say about this change, but it wasn't as major as I thought it would be. I also have a couple of bits of information, bad and weird news. So bad news is, at least at first glance and second and third glance, I wasn't able to see that the vacuum tube bow is still bugging out with Pharah's ability like it used to. For those of you who don't know, when it branched out to different enemies, it would chain Pharah's ability and knock out entire encampments in a couple of shots. That was not my experience here. I hope I'm wrong. If anybody else did any more testing and found that this weapon is still sort of bugged like it was before, that's great. Let me know. But from my experience, it seems like the vacuum tube bow is a little back down to earth where it sort of should be. I thought it was fine before. I thought it was fine with the changes. I don't use these bows that often. I love bows. I use them, as often enough, but not my main loadout, that's for sure. So maybe some of you who use this more often will notice that a bit different. And as for the weird news, I I actually ran out of carved twine when I was testing this stuff, and I found that the powder keg, along with probably some other bows, I really didn't look into this any further, recycles into efficient parts, even though it's crafted with carved twine. So that's weird. I don't know why it does that. I don't know if it's always done that, but that's the case. And maybe that's with other bows. I don't really care. It's not that important to me. I'm sorry, but it's kind of a conversion glitch. That's what we call it. You're not duplicating items. In fact, you're losing a lot of items by converting this way. But if you have a crap ton of carved twine and you want to make efficient parts, I guess you can do that. I hope Epic doesn't ban people for that. It would not make sense to me, but they've banned people for less. So careful, but it's a thing. I don't know. I'm not endorsing it. It's just a thing that happens. So Epic, please fix. And the last one I tested that I want to show is the Love Song. And that's kind of the only real ability that I wanted to show. The Instigator is another bow in the game that makes it so that enemies take more damage when you are at max charge and you hit them with that. So that could be nice and impacted by fire rate if you are somebody who commonly uses the Instigator for weakening mini bosses or heavy miss monsters or whatever. That's a nice thing. I do want to address the fact that in the terminology here it does say bosses, which as far as I'm aware only impacts the Storm King. This was reported to be working on mini bosses as per release. I don't know if that's still the case. I don't use this weapon that often because an entire weapon / a full draw is not worth a 20% damage increase for 10 seconds. I have never had any problem just using my weapons as normal, and so that's not a thing I do, but that's something to consider, that fire rate might impact the Instigator in a positive way. As for the Love Song, that's another weapon that's just a letdown. I'm sorry, I love this weapon. I do. It's cool. I had a great time making the video. Anytime I get to use Selena Gomez in not only the thumbnail but the footage, I'm having a great day. Trust me. But the Love Song was not the source of that enjoyment. I was an idiot and left crit damage on this, but I wasn't really showcasing the damage. I was really more so showcasing the fact that with fire rate, you can charge it to max capacity faster, and you can stun the enemies quicker, which is nice. It's not a game-changing ability. I don't think stunning miss monsters is that big of a deal, but I don't know. It's a thing. I'm showing it to you because it's affected by fire rate. Now, finally, let's move into some of the meat and potatoes. My absolute favorite change is the Storm King's Wrath. I run this thing with fire rate anyway. I'm the kind of holdout who really stands for fire rate instead of damage. Having beat the Storm King over 200 times with this weapon, I think I know what I'm talking about, and I definitely prefer fire rate. And now, with the new changes, it charges up to its max, blast faster with the fire rate, which means my schematic as I use it on a regular basis is just stronger now, and I couldn't be more happy about that. For those of you who don't know, if you charge the Storm King's Wrath all the way up, it'll shoot like 3 shots that chain between enemies, and you can take out hordes of zombies. That's an awesome perk. I'm very happy that that is now faster. So if you use the Storm King's Wrath with fire rate, you'll be happy as I am, and if you don't use it with fire rate, now you have something to consider. Moving on with my list, let's talk about the Crescendo. I'm skipping over the Zapotron because nothing's going to make that weapon good. I'm sorry. I didn't even test it with fire rate. If I'm wrong, let me know. Call me out. If this weapon is good now, I will review it tomorrow. But I didn't want to ask anybody to spend any resources even testing this weapon. I am fully convinced that the Zapotron is going to take a lot more than a fire rate perk to be useful. But the Crescendo, on the other hand, had some opportunity because a lot of people like this weapon because it can charge up to do a ton of damage. I was comfortably hitting for over 1 million damage without even trying with a double headshot physical double fire rate build, and then I used damage reload double headshot physical for the other one. Thank you so much to Magical for dropping me this copy. He not only maxed it out but reperked it as I needed it both times. He spent a lot on this, so thank you so much to him for setting this up for me so I could show it to you guys. It is nice and fast with fire rate. I'm actually very impressed with it. If you use the Crescendo, I think I might recommend fire rate, but it was never really an insanely useful weapon, so I wasn't even sure how to test this, you guys. I know it does a lot more damage to a single target enemy, but groups of zombies are a thing that happens, so if you're going to use a sniper, it's usually something you switch to take out a miss monster, so it kind of needs to be fast, and charging it up was always what, wrote it off for me. I didn't like the fact that I needed to charge up to do as much damage as the Spyglass just did natively, and with the double fire rate, that's nice. That's significantly faster. Maybe this is a more useful weapon, and it's interesting because they gave it 2 fire rate perks, whereas with every other weapon, they gave it 1 fire rate perk. So something to consider. Maybe Epic is really hinting with that second fire rate perk that they want us to be using this weapon. I wasn't impressed, but I'll let you guys take my findings with a grain of salt and test it out yourself if you like the Crescendo and you want to see your schematic get any better. The Noble Launcher is another one that I skipped because, like the Zapotron, Zapotron, the Noble Launcher is extremely expensive to use. 60 energy cells for a full blast. I do not stand by the weapon, and I don't want to give you guys subjective analysis. I don't want my opinions to get in the way of science, but mathematically, its damage is low, its cost is expensive, and it can shoot through walls, which is very nice. It goes through hordes of zombies for a high price of 60 energy cells per shot. So fire rate can help you blow your energy cells faster, but if we're talking about what was most impacted by the fire rate changes, I think the Storm King's Wrath is a better use of your energy cells 100%. Now, a fun change was the Monsoon, and this is the last one that I tested in game. Again, with the Vacuum Tube Sniper, they gave our fastest firing sniper a fire rate perk. I'm okay with that. That's awesome. If you use the Vacuum Tube Sniper for Zenith, then fire rate on this is going to make you freeze enemies a lot faster, but you're also going to have to forego a crit rating crit damage build. So you might want to, be careful with that one, but this thing has a 15.66 fire rate with Sunbeam. So it didn't need a fire rate perk, but they gave it to it anyway, and I'm pretty sure this weapon doesn't have a charge attack. So why the Vacuum Tube Sniper was in their scopes, pun intended, I don't know, but regardless, I will not be showing any gameplay of it because I don't know what change that could make that was meaningful. It already shoots insanely fast. What am I supposed to say? For the Monsoon, however, we are also talking about the fastest firing weapon in the game. So it is a fastest firing SMG. Its base fire rate is 18, with Sunbeam at 16.2, and you can see here with a fire rate perk, it is 23, which is insane. But now, that fire rate perk makes it charge up faster. For those of you who don't know, the Monsoon has the fastest fire rate, but it has that 2 to 3 second spin up time to actually get going, and now that is a lot faster with fire rate. I do not recommend this. As fun as it seems, as much as you might want to shoot 23 shots per second, don't do it. You will be replacing a crit build for a fire rate damage build, which means you will be blowing a lot more shots, doing a lot less damage per bullet, and it's just not worth it. I didn't find that the spin up time reduction was significant enough to be using this as like a normal SMG. I didn't find it to be that big of a difference, and I wasn't insanely impressed by that in that regard. However, it's cool. It's nice that this now affects this weapon in that way, but I really think crit rating crit damage is literally the best bang for your buck, meaning your damage per bullet will be a lot higher than fire rate and damage, and you won't have to reload this thing as often because, like I said, this thing didn't need the fire rate perk. While the spin up time is nice, I'm going to leave that up to you if that's going to be worth it or not, but it's something to consider, and it's interesting nonetheless. Oh boy, it is late though. I'm sorry if this was a little rushed or if I missed anything that you might have wanted me to talk about. If I missed anything important and you want me to redo this video or cover it in a future video, let me know in the comments below. I think this change was good. I don't have a bad thing to say about it. Like I said, it might have been slightly unnecessary, something nobody certainly asked for, but it's cool. It's nice. All the bows have a little bit more of a consideration in the perking process, but like I said, and I showed, I'm not certain that that made a world of difference, but I'll let you guys decide for yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new, and see you guys in the next one. And then